episode 151 of AviaDev Insight Africa, the podcast offering a window to the world of African aviation with your host, John Howell, CEO and founder of AviaDev Africa. Now, given the trying circumstances, I do hope all of you out there are staying as positive as possible. And I hope that the podcast gives you a little bit of a boost and gives you a bit of a feeling of connection with the community that we know is more important than ever in the current environment. We're going to continue to bring to the table those who are progressing our great industry, and today is no exception. Today, I'm actually welcoming back a former guest on the podcast, Max. Max Gosney is the Portfolio Director and Conference Chairman of Ground Handling International, or GHI as they're known in the trade. AviaDev and GHI have got a partnership stretching back a couple of years, and we are delighted to be attending and supporting the upcoming Digital Reconnect event for Africa, which is going to take place in February 2021. So we're going to find a little bit more about what's going to happen at the event, what the topics will be, who the speakers are, and how we can move this great industry forward. So welcome to the podcast, Max.
Hello, John. Thank you for having me back. I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to the pod this afternoon.
Fantastic. Well, we're grateful to have you with us. So let's start by talking about GHI and your relationship with Africa. You know, how long have you been operating in Africa, and why is that particular market important to you?
We launched the African conference back in 2014, and we have a regional GHI event across every continent. So Asia, Americas, Europe, where we host the annual event. The African is the youngest of the portfolio, but it was absolutely essential for us really that we have a presence in the African market. We're a global ground handling events business talking to a global market, and we've got to therefore be in Africa and be a part of African aviation and its development over the next 20-30 years. So we see Africa as an absolute linchpin of our global presence, and it's the 6th edition will be of the GHI African Stakeholders Conference. It's still in production. It's like a difficult second album. It's taken a long time to put out, and I'm sure you've got the same issues there with your conferences. But the Reconnect event is our effort to say, look, whilst we can't do a physical event at the moment for Africa, we really want to stay in touch with the market. We want to provide that forum for stakeholders to talk, connect, and address some of the monumental challenges that we now have as a result of this pandemic.
Yeah, I think as you've said, we're moving from having traditionally done live events into this virtual world. So give us an overview as to what the format and the objective of the event is going to be in February.
I mean, the objective, number one goal really, is to reconnect our market there, our stakeholders, airlines, ground handlers, airport suppliers, and coordinate the conversations over a safe and an effective restart from the pandemic. So the priority is bringing people together, providing content to discuss some of the challenges that the market faces in doing that. We've got a number of interesting seminar sessions, keynote speakers, and all of the access to the keynote conference is completely free because we want to open it up to as many market players as possible. We know times are particularly difficult. And alongside that, we have a very effective networking forum that will allow people to hold one-to-one meetings and in private have business conversations about, look, what's happened since we last spoke, what sort of contract opportunities are there, what sort of equipment do stations need that they perhaps didn't need before. So we'll have a premium access meeting service. That one will be available at an upgraded price, but you will have free access to all the content where you can just come in and listen about how we're going to get the vaccine distributed to Africa, make sure Africa's not left behind here, how we're going to build on stakeholder collaboration between handlers and airlines, what opportunities are there for cargo in Africa, which is a big potential revenue stream whilst we go through these lean times. So lots and lots to talk about. We'll have trouble, I think, fitting it all into a day. We'd invite everybody to come along and to be part of that.
Great. So we'll come to the topics in a second, but in terms of the like you say, since the pandemic started, one thing that's been a blessing is that it's so much more accessible for people to reach this content now, because you just have to turn your computer on or get your phone online and have a listen in. And we've done exactly the same thing with our conferences in terms of make the content side of it, accessible and free. But then obviously the premium meetings, which is where only certain people are going to get value from that anyway, if it's the particular players that are buying and selling the equipment. I think having that forum, and yours is very unique like ours in that it's pretty much the only one for that particular market. So I'm sure the audience are really going to appreciate the opportunity to come. But anybody listening to this who's got a passing interest in ground handling, I would highly recommend they come in and they learn. I mean, that's one of the big reasons I want to get involved is, although I worked in ground handling when I was 20 years ago or so, I would love to get back into it. I love to see what's happening in Africa. And like you said, the cargo side's really exciting. So focusing on that, what are the key topics that are going to be discussed? And what are and obviously these have been formed from what the key issues are right now affecting the industry. So give us a bit of an overview of what you'll be talking about.
Well, I mean, I guess to no surprises, I mean, COVID is a dominant theme, and the real central part of our opening session, which is a big debate, is going to look at, what now are the challenges for the African market? We know there's historic difficulties there around fragmentation, around disconnectivity, and key countries perhaps not working together as collaboratively as they could, to the detriment of the entire sector. So it's now saying, look, where are we at now? Because as I understand it, ICAO are talking about, the CART group, about ensuring coordinated restart, security protocols, biosecurity being very important. So we've got to have key markets moving at the same speed, standardizing boarding protocol, COVID preventing measures on the aircraft. Otherwise, we could face, I guess, an exaggerated version of that fragmentation, where certain markets are open, but you can't fly from one key market like Nigeria to Kenya because there's a quarantine. And look, that's not unique to Africa. We're seeing that in the Americas now, in Europe. We can't have these sort of state by state protocols that then prevent the freedom to travel, and just, I think they unseat everybody here, and they prevent growth and that freedom of movement that has driven the aviation industry over the last 40, 50 years in some areas. And that will be key. But the vaccine, I think the vaccine's a big session we're looking forward to and excited about. Is, look, Africa is a real fear, I guess, reading literature around this, and news stories coming out of the global media, that Africa could here be left behind, that Europe will look to vaccinate itself, the Americas, and that's to the detriment of the global community. I think I was reading yesterday, there's 7 manufacturing sites for a potential vaccine in Africa. Only 2 of those are feasible and would produce it at the speed that it needs to be delivered. And then if Africa's cut off, I mean, it'd just be a dreadful situation, I think, and leave out one of the key markets from the rest of the world. So we've got to make a plan to not only get that vaccine imported into Africa, but then distribute it in a way that ensures that it arrives in the integral condition it's going to need to be delivered to patients. We did something at our last Reconnect event for the global market, talking about 1 in 4 vaccines are destroyed in transit. So I mean, if you listen to all these stories on the news about this vaccine 70% effective, this one's 90% effective, well, guess what? 25% of them never make it. And I think that's a particular challenge in Africa, where you're going to have cold chain storage facilities at the airport. And if a flight's delayed and sitting there on the apron, and that vaccine isn't being kept the way it should, we can't take that risk. I mean, there's a huge amount of life-saving medicine that might be spoiled here if we don't come together as an aviation community and work out a plan. So that's what this is about, working out that plan.
Yeah, fascinating. I didn't know that about the 25%.
Yeah, it frightened me when I heard that statistic.
More, just what we needed. More bad news statistics.
But, I suppose the good news is a lot of that. It's around training. It's around the equipment needed to keep vaccines at the right temperatures. Around avoiding those unnecessary slot delays where aircraft aren't arriving and being handled at the optimum schedule that they should be. So it's stuff that we can fix.
Yeah. And I think, your previous point is so important, and it's something we're a huge advocates of, which is traditionally there's been fragmentation in all elements in terms of the way that Africa is connected and how open it is to allow air services from other partners, but also trade, tourism, movement of people. And, we've been really encouraged over the last few years of these big cornerstone projects like the single African air transport market, the continental free trade area, the uni visa. If these things are implemented, then Africa can work better together. But that fragmentation in policy making is something we're seeing across the world. Like European countries, we may be in a EU bloc, obviously not the UK anymore, but they're still using their own decision-making powers to decide their own policies when it comes to quarantine and testing and all that sort of stuff. So it's not unique to Africa, but this is the opportunity to say, right, we now need to rebuild as Africa first, because if, like you said, the Europeans are and the Americans and the Asians are the first to be vaccinated, then incoming tourism into Africa is going to be very reliant on those continents and those countries, and it won't really be possible within Africa, and that's not what anybody wants. We need that localized market to really be the cornerstone, and the international to be complementary to that, but be a smaller part. And that's obviously, it's a big concern. Come at some of the key speakers that you've got lined up for us.
Well, we've got I guess a mix of some familiar faces to our conferences, and we've got some new speakers that we're looking forward to welcoming on board. So we've got Gosney from AFRA back, who's going to be talking to us about innovation in the airline industry as a result of COVID. We have got Bob Gurr, who's a big friend of GHI and helped us launch the initial conference over at Swissport in South Africa. He's going to be on our cargo panel, so looking forward to hearing from him. We've got the guys there from Kenya Airways, Gordon Aniyimyu, who is talking to us about how he sees Africa working together on the COVID challenge and some of those issues around connectivity and I guess stakeholder relationships with his ground handlers. Digitization is also going to be on there, and we're looking forward to hearing about that. We've got Emmanuel Chavez, who's at ACI Africa, and new to me. It's the first time I'll have the opportunity and the pleasure to meet him. So he's sitting in on a couple of the keynote panels. We have Sanjeev Gadhia, who is CEO Astral Aviation, and through our friends at Tiaka has been recommended for the conference. So we're looking forward to hearing about cargo and how his business is rising to that challenge. So they're a sprinkling of familiar friends and one or two new faces to help us move the conversations on. So we're very much looking forward to getting the guys back and not quite in the room, but on the screen, and hearing how their stories have developed and how they're addressing some of the challenges out there.
Yeah, a lot of our friends. I mean, Sanjeev, I have to thank him because it's his Astral 747 that lands not far from here and brings green beans to the supermarket here in the north of England. So, he's just had a 767 freighter as well last week that was delivered. So they've done really well keeping Kenya connected, and obviously Kenya Airways as well, sort of focusing more on the cargo side. So that's really interesting, the cargo side. But we are as AviaDev as well, and it's such a big part of GHI. We need the passengers. We need passenger handling back. Yeah. And it's about trying to understand how we can do that as well. So you've got some fantastic names there. And as we said, let's everybody that's listening now come along for some positivity, some insight from the experts, and challenge them on, get involved in the Q&A and challenge them on what they're doing to obviously support the restart.
Yeah, no, you definitely have the chance to do that. I mean, as you know, John, from doing it yourself, the opportunity to do come along, and you've got that forum to ask a question. You can send it in, and we'll pick it up as the panelists. And that's what I love about Africa. I think more than any other conference we do anywhere in the world, the passion to get involved, shape the debate, and tell stories always comes through in the conference room. And sometimes you're sitting up there on stage, aren't you? You're thinking, oh, where's there a question? And there's that deathly silence. But in Africa, wherever you go, it's hands shooting up and people wanting to contribute and have their sort of enthusiasm just it shines through, and it's great because it adds to the debate that you get from the conference.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as we know, it's not a huge community, and there's such crossover. As we just said, a lot of the people that you're talking about have been guests on the podcast or guests at AviaDev itself. So, there's huge overlap because we're a tight-knit community and we all want the same thing. So that's the content side. Give us a bit of an overview about the meeting side of things. Who's that aimed at, and how does it all kind of work?
I mean, it's aimed across the supply chain, but I guess you've got key groups. So we always find that the airlines are very keen to talk with the handling partners. So we're looking at facilitating those conversations through the meeting service. But then the handlers are very much looking as well to be talking to their suppliers. So the guys producing the pushback tugs or the belt loaders. So the equipment manufacturers want to talk to them. So there's almost a pyramid there of different conversations. The beauty of the meeting service that we do at GHI is it's all managed for you. And I'm sure, like, you know, when we go to events, sometimes you have a meeting service and you've got to send out the requests and you've got to chase them up and you've got to make sure that person is in the room or even the virtual room when you said you wanted them to be. We've got a specialist team that take care of all of that for you. So you come to us, you say, right, I want to meet with you know, this buyer at Kenya Airways or Ethiopian, and at these time slots, and we will go away, we'll design a schedule for you, we'll produce it around your specifications. You want to do it in the morning before 10 o'clock, that's fine, we'll arrange that for you. And if that person hasn't got back and you haven't had a response, then we'll chase it all up. So it's a very much a professionally or organically managed service from the GHI team to make sure that everything runs smoothly, you get the appointments you want to have, and you come away feeling like, yeah, I spoke to the right person and they turned up and we had a good quality conversation. And as a result of it, I've got either a new business opportunity or, you know, I've learned something that I didn't know before the event. So it's different to other meeting services, and it's our crown jewel really, and we pride ourselves on delivering a great service.
Yeah, it's exactly, you know, the way that we work as well. We'd much rather give a niche personalized service to a smaller number of people. And I think that in a post-COVID world, we could do a whole podcast about this as event organizers. But I've always believed if you can deliver what people, instead of saying, oh yeah, there's thousands of people here, you'll meet the CEO of such and such, he's here. But if you've never met him, you don't know how to get hold of him, you don't know what he looks like, how the heck are you going to find him? You're just going to end up very frustrated that you knew that person was somewhere in the room and you never got to meet them. Or they're trying to hide because there's so many people that want to meet them. They're hiding in the hotel room until they have to speak. So yeah, I think that, you know, post pandemic, the model you have is very similar to the model that we have at AviaDev, which is focus on a personalized agenda to say, we'll take care of all the work. We just need you to turn up to the meeting, be prepared for that meeting, and then you will have that private conversation. You know, that is something that translates across technology like it would in a real life as well. So yeah, I love the idea of that. So last couple of questions. I mean, the first one is, before we sort of get a bit of an overview as to how the listeners can find out more and where they can go to register, but in terms of Africa generally, we touched on this at the beginning, but how optimistic are you about the future, and how optimistic are your partners that you work with on the on the ground? You know, there's obviously been a setback, but do you feel that the industry is still positive?
I'm very positive that Africa is going to continue to develop and will be a successful key global aviation market, despite I don't underestimate the enormous challenges that this pandemic creates, and it's going to be a very difficult period that the market now faces. But ultimately, for me, I think there's, forgive me if I've said it on here before, but the Nelson Mandela quote around it always seems impossible until it's done. And I think it's that, yeah, it's daunting. There are so many challenges ahead, but the raw ingredients of the African market, the passion of the operators to showcase their services, to bring people from around the world to their market, the fact that you've got you know, such wonderful tourist attractions there where people from around the world want to visit. I mean, you've got the finest wildlife in the world, you've got sort of cultural places of significance, you've got rainforest. I mean, it's such a great place to visit, and you know, the birthplace of humanity, isn't it? So I think the market there has got such appeal that this can't not happen for me. I think you've got 1.3 billion people, you've got, you know, rising economies, but we do face an enormous challenge, I think, particularly around the vaccine distribution, around trying to stay together as key global markets and not act in our own self-interest here. But I'm very confident, despite that Africa will thrive, and the future is very bright for the market in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great rallying cry, and something that obviously we both believe in. We're putting events on in that market, and we want to support it. Tools it needs to grow. There's no doubt it's been set back by this. It's how much of a setback, and how do we use this hiatus to put in those ground, you know, that foundation that's going to help us do things better once things do recover. That's how I'm seeing this period. Is it's a real opportunity to take stock and say, okay, what were we doing right? What were we doing wrong? The environment has changed completely. Are we set up for whatever this new environment is in our you know, in our heads? And therefore we can kind of proceed from there. So I'm with you 100%. And I'm sure we'll have this conversation in 2 or 3 or 4 years time. And you know, we'll hopefully it'll all be in the rear view mirror. Let's definitely hope so. So last question then, the really important bit, which is, where do our listeners go? What's the website? How can they get hold of you guys on social media, you know, and get themselves registered?
I mean, you can email me. You can drop me an email, which is max@groundhandling.com. It is, as I say, it's a free to register content pass event. You can go to the website, which is africa.groundhandling.com, and you can register for your pass there. Drop us a line and just, you know, go onto the website, drop me an email, and we'll provide you with a registration link. And you know, you can go on, join us on the day. It's going to be a very insightful day of contributions from key market players. The world is watching. The other thing says, I mean, it's whilst we'll focus on Africa content, it's very much an invitation to a global audience to join in, because whether you're in the Americas, whether in Europe, whether you're in Africa, you are having the same common challenges around how we're going to help deliver this vaccine. How do we thrive in a low liquidity environment that we're all in, and what are the partnership opportunities with airlines? So the world will be there too, watching. And please come along if you're passionate about African aviation. If you want to make a difference, if you want to support the cause, then be there and take part.
Fantastic. And it's the 16th of February.
It is the 16th of February, so we've got just over 2 weeks. 2 weeks on Tuesday, 16th of February. If you log on now, you can get your personal page. You can see the agenda. You can work out the best way you want to spend your time on the 16th to maximise your value out of the conference. And yeah, please come along. We'd love to have you there.
Awesome. Well, Max and I will definitely be there. I'll put the link to the website in the show notes. So if you're listening now and you want a quick link, just go to the show notes, hit that button, you'll get onto the website. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John. No, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody out there for taking the time to listen today. As always, all that we ask in terms of payment is that you share this episode with one person in your network that you think would like to register for the conference and would like to hear a bit more about what GHI are doing in Africa. And, you know, we will see you there on the 16th of February for GHI's Africa Reconnect conference. And we'll keep the community informed, engaged and entertained. And we'll see you all for the next episode of the podcast very soon. Take care of yourselves.